Welcome once again to the Russell Brown Show and this continuing series of tutorials on printing. In this tutorial and this fine episode of the Russell Brown Show, I'm going to demonstrate how to print from Adobe InDesign. Now, you will know by now, after watching the first two movies in this series, that there's some basic principles to printing that are critical to getting quality results. And as you saw, you need to choose a target printer, you need to choose a target paper, and you need to be color managed throughout. So, in this project, I'm going to assume that you've watched my earlier two movies, and you now know those basics as I move forward with this project. Now, let's start by showing you what's happening inside this document. This document, of course, is made up of two separate placed items. The color wheel was created in Adobe Illustrator, of course, in a color-managed workspace. I'm working within the Adobe RGB workspace. So this color wheel was created there and then imported here into InDesign. The image in the background was created in Adobe Photoshop. It consists of a series of color images as well as this grayscale band with text in it. I wanted to test both color and a true grayscale image in this process. I combined the two together here inside of Adobe InDesign. Now, before I get started with printing, I'd also like to point out here under the View menu, you can select Proof Setup and go over to the Custom menu here. Then you can select the target printer. In this case, it's the Pro 4000 from Epson. You could, of course, also select this Xerox printer that I've spoken of in my earlier movies. In this particular project, I'm going to focus on the Epson printer because by now you have the theories down of choosing the target printer and the target paper. Let's check this out. If I click OK now, the colors will change on my screen to reflect more closely the colors that you will receive when you print this document. So this is a great feature to change the preview settings to allow you to preview the future. Okay, let's turn that off and get going. Under the File menu, I'm going to select Print right here. And as you can see here, our first dialog appears. This is the standard dialog, and it is very similar to the dialog that you found in Adobe Illustrator. We're going to start with General. Then I'm going to move up here under Printer and select the printer that I'm going to target for this project, which is the Epson 4000. That would be step number 1. Next, we're going to select Color Management right here. This, of course, would be step number 2. And in step number 2, we have two options we need to adjust. Here, under Color Handling, we want to make sure that InDesign is in control. So we let InDesign determine the colors. As you recall, we let Adobe Illustrator determine its colors, and Adobe Photoshop determine its colors. Down here, under Printer Profile, we must select the appropriate profile for the targeted printer. We select Enhanced Matte Paper, just like that. So again, this was step number 2. Step number 3, under Page Setup, I'd like to click this and make sure that again I'm targeting the appropriate printer right here, the Epson 4000, and I have the correct paper size selected right here. I click OK. We're now ready for step number 4, the printer settings. Here, this button at the base, I'm clicking Printer. We're now entering into the world of the Epson printer or the world of any other printer that we might have chosen. In this case, for the Epson printer, I'm clicking here under Copies and Pages and moving down to Printer Settings. There are actually two locations that are critical. In this first one, we must set the type of paper or media we're going to use. What did we say? We're using Enhanced Matte Paper. Select that. I'm going to select here for Advanced Settings because I like to run this at a little bit higher resolution. I'm going to set this for Superfine 1440. Just like that. Again, these settings are unique to this particular printer, and you would make the appropriate settings for the device you have chosen. Now, that was, of course, step number 5, printer settings. Step number 6, color management. Our final and most critical setting is to turn off the color management which is built into this particular dialog for the Epson printer. The same would be true for a Canon printer, HP printer, or even Xerox printer, because earlier we said that InDesign was in control. We don't want double color management happening. So again, turn this off. Then we can go back to our copies and pages. We're all set. All of our settings for both printer settings and printer color management have been made, and we can now select print. But does it start printing? No. It is not until you select this button to print at the base of the print dialog that all of the settings that we've just made will then add together and give you quality results. So there you have it. You've seen printing all the way from Photoshop to Illustrator, and then finally here in Adobe InDesign, where I've combined both Illustrator and Photoshop files together, and believe it or don't, the finished results should be identical to those that you printed from Photoshop as well as Illustrator. Remember, the results you achieve will be based upon how well you've color managed your system and the particular profiles that you're using. Give it a try the next time you are attempting to make some quality prints.